Hello and thank you for joining us for Northwest Newsweek. I'm Riley McManus. Ontario Premier Doug Ford believes the path for the province to become a global leader in the mining of rare earth metals begins here in the north, which is why he was at the Lac des Îles mine north of Thunder Bay Thursday to announce a new strategy geared towards critical minerals. Adam Riley has the details.
Located more than 100 kilometers north of Thunder Bay sits what Premier Doug Ford says will lead Ontario to the front of the pack for mining precious rare metals used in most modern electronics.
Global businesses are searching for the materials, expertise, and human power needed to build technologies of the future. And I'm here to say, once again, look no further. That's why I'm so excited today to release our government's critical mineral strategy.
That strategy is geared towards improving supply chains, attracting investments for mining in the province, and to make sure the economic benefits from extracting those minerals, such as the palladium from the Lac des Îles mine, are shared with Indigenous partners. Minister Greg Rickford, who oversees both the Indigenous Affairs and the mine's Northern Development, Natural Resources and Forestry portfolios, says there are many Indigenous communities who want in on the 21st century green economy.
Côté Gold, Greenstone, all signatories, Indigenous communities locked into the business, labor, and environmental standards by which these mines operate.
Ford says palladium is the key for Ontario to establish itself within the green economy through the automotive sector, specifically the production of batteries vital to electric vehicles.
As everyone knows, Ontario has been a leader in North America's auto manufacturing industry for 100 years. And where the minerals come from for the batteries is right here in the north. And our government is working day in and day out to keep us leading the way for the next 100 years.
The announcement also saw Ford and Rickford meet with mine workers, calling them some of the toughest people working the toughest job around. Aside from Northern Ontario, palladium is found in very few places around the world, including Montana, South Africa, and Russia, the latter of which was on the receiving end of Ford's closing remarks.
And Mr. Putin, we don't need you anymore, buddy. We got all the mining we have here.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Wyloo Metals is now officially the owner of Noront Resources, meaning the Australian company now has the largest stake in the Ring of Fire, coming in at a price of $616 million. Nearly 99% of Noront shareholders voted in favor of the deal during a special shareholders meeting on Tuesday. The shareholders still have an additional 10 days to decide if they want to retain their shares or receive the cash offer by Wyloo. The sales include the high-grade Eagle's Nest deposit, which has the high amounts of nickel, copper, platinum, and palladium. Noront Resources expects its takeover by Wyloo Metals to be approved by the Ontario Superior Court of Justice in early April. The second strike in 5 years at Ontario's colleges has been avoided. The College Employer Council and the union representing 16,000 college staff came to an agreement to enter binding arbitration prior to their Thursday deadline. It came down to the wire for the two sides to come to an agreement, roughly an hour before the midnight deadline. Much like in 2017, it would have seen professors, instructors, librarians, and counselors walk off the job. Confederation College Student Union President Ronnie Kasna is thrilled that students will not have to deal with the disturbance of their education.
Students are so grateful and relieved that their classes will not be disrupted by a labor dispute, and they can continue work towards their graduation without any interruption. Hopefully, they will put something where they can think of the student needs when they are negotiating and coming into that binding arbitration. And things will be sorted out. That's all I can hope for now.
The binding arbitration will include a neutral arbitrator to build a compromise between the two competing proposals from both sides. Previously, the union and the CEC had said there were sticking points they would not agree on. A Sioux Lookout man is in custody following a standoff with OPP in Wabigoon Township. Police say the incident began before 10 a.m. on March 13th, following an assault at a residence. When officers arrived, it was discovered that the subject barricaded themselves inside the home with another individual. The standoff closed the highway for 7 hours. Fortunately, the 37-year-old was taken into custody without injury and has been charged with failing to comply with probation order. However, the OPP says further charges could come as the investigation continues. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered a powerful virtual speech to the Canadian Parliament on Tuesday. He asked our nation's lawmakers to imagine that Canadian cities were the ones under attack from the Russian air assault, while pleading for NATO countries to implement a no-fly zone over Ukraine. A pair of Northwestern Ontario MPs who were in the House of Commons for that impassioned speech say it's a moment that will stick with them forever. Ryan Benazzo reports.
Every night is a horrible night. Russians are shelling.
It was an historic address, a wartime president speaking directly to Canadian MPs, praising them for help that's already been delivered to Ukraine, while urging them to do more, specifically to push for a NATO-imposed no-fly zone to stop Russian airstrikes.
Close the airspace. Please stop the bombing. How many more cruise missiles have to fall on our cities?
One of those moments in Parliament you certainly will never forget.
Kennora's Conservative MP Eric Melillo, one of 313 parliamentarians who was blacklisted by the Kremlin just hours after Zelensky's address, says there's agreement in the House that Canada should do more.
I'm happy that he noted the response that Canada has had so far, but he was also very clear that he feels that we need to step up and do more. And I think that there was agreement across all parties in Parliament that we do need to do more, and it's important that we do that in concert with our NATO allies.
And Thunder Bay Liberal Marcus Pawlowski isn't mincing words, saying NATO should grant Zelensky's request.
I think we ought to be seriously contemplating a no-fly zone.
Pawlowski acknowledges the presence of Russian nuclear weapons makes that a risky proposition, but he likens it to the start of World War II, saying unfortunately he believes the West will ultimately be drawn into the fighting and should do so before Putin can make further advances.
We have international obligations. We have obligations to our fellow human beings, and I think there comes a time where you can't morally just stand aside and watch women and children, old people dying and not get involved.
Thus far, NATO countries, including Canada, have shown no interest in implementing a no-fly zone. Ryan Benazzo, TVT News.
Kenora MP Eric Melillo is prideful after being listed as one of the 313 Canadians sanctioned by the Russian government. The ban includes a majority of parliamentarians who have stood against the invasion in Ukraine. The ban came the same day Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed Canada's parliament to request more support to counter the Russian invasion. The Kenora MP is the lone parliament representative from Northwestern Ontario on the list that also includes the Prime Minister. Melillo says the ban doesn't impact him at all, as he has no desire to travel to Russia anytime soon.
I do see this as a badge of honor because I'm proud to stand with Ukraine and with the Ukrainian people, alongside all parliamentarians, and I think it's great to see that we're united there. And I know that these sanctions aren't going to deter us from continuing to stand up for what's right.
Almost all of the Conservative Party was sanctioned, with only 116 of the 159 Liberal MPs making the list. Melillo mentions that all parties agreed they need to continue to do more to help Ukraine. Council in Marathon is back to full strength following the swearing-in of Zach Suki during its Monday meeting.
I, Zachary Suki, have been appointed to the office of councillor in the municipality of Marathon, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability.
Suki was part of a group of 5 candidates on the shortlist under consideration to replace former councillor Chantal Gingras, following her resignation from council last month to head up to the town's library. Suki was chosen both for his enthusiasm towards the community safety and will bring a youthful perspective to council and a business perspective as well, as he and his wife operate a chiropractic clinic in the community. Suki will serve until the end of the term, after which he will be running during the fall municipal election. When we come back, the province dedicates $8 million to mental health and addiction treatments here in the Northwest. The provincial government is looking to support those seeking treatment for addiction issues in the Thunder Bay area. It comes following an announcement Monday from Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions Michael Tobolo of $3.8 million for 34 new treatment beds. Lee Noonan has the details.
What that means is that we will be providing 34 new treatment beds in Thunder Bay.
The bulk of the $3.8 million of funding will go to Daliko Anishinaabeg Family Care to create 20 supportive treatment beds. Fort William First Nation Chief Peter Collins has a personal connection to the issue. He spoke about the need in his community for a continuum of care, including post-detox aftercare and the importance of having beds available immediately when someone seeks help.
My nephew who recently lost his life in the city, he wanted a detox. He was ready for a treatment program, but there was no beds open for him, and we lost him. He ended up losing his life.
St. Joseph's Care Group is part of a coalition of 6 agencies who will be receiving $1.1 million of this funding. Kelly O'Brien, president and CEO, emphasized the importance of collaboration between service agencies.
Not one organization can work alone to deliver care so complex across a continuum for individuals with addictions and mental health. So working with partner agencies like Community Mental Health Association, with Crossroads, with Norwest Community Centre, it actually allows us to get better value for the funding that we receive. We work together, we define who can deliver what, who has what resource that they're able to give in kind, etc. So it actually enables us to be way more effective with planning.
Tobolo estimated that the 34 new beds would mean 400 to 500 treatment spots over the course of the year. He explains that the funding comes as part of a series of announcements for addictions treatment funding across Northern Ontario, with the aim of decreasing the number of people who would have to travel to service hubs like Thunder Bay to access services.
So what we did was we calculated what the bed needs would be across the province, whether it's Sioux Lookout, Timmins, to try to keep people closest to home for supports. And again, the reason for that is the closer to home you are when you get your treatment, the higher the success rate.
Service providers and stakeholders in attendance at today's announcement agreed that this was an important step forwards and good news for the city. However, they added, there is much work yet to be done. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Following Monday's announcements of new detox bed in Thunder Bay, Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions Michael Tobolo was in Sioux Lookout Tuesday to announce supports for addictions recovery in that community. The province is bringing $4.2 million to assist area mental health and addiction service providers to expand access to 37 new addictions and treatment beds in the municipality, which serves as a hub for many remote communities. The funding is being allocated to the Economic Development Corporation for the Sioux Lookout Friendship Accord, an agreement founded in 2017 between Sioux Lookout and the communities of Lac Seul, Slate Falls, Cat Lake, KI First Nations. Tobolo says he is hopeful the beds will be activated as soon as possible, noting the SLFA has a plan already.
We did this in a way that we sent out for a request for proposals from different communities to see what they could provide to us without having to make long-term investments in bricks and mortar. Because again, if the capacity is there, and we found that there's a need and there's capacity here for us to be able to open these 37 beds. So the hope is they'll be opened very quickly.
We see the needs of many people as they come to travel through, live in Sioux Lookout, and it's a large population that has been really probably the most socially marginalized in terms of the social determinants of health, the most marginalized population in Ontario, the remote communities of the north.
Lawrence says municipalities tend to not deal directly with mental health and addictions issues, but can act as a bridge to advocate and assist with initiatives like this. The increasing cost of food is particularly being felt by organizations that are working to address food security in the region. Food distributors say their costs have skyrocketed in a number of ways, including packaging and an increase on rates of fuel and electricity. Lee Noonan has more.
Community organizations that deliver food-based programs in and around Thunder Bay are seeing their budgets stretched thin, not only by sharply rising food prices, but also by supply shortages and increased transportation costs. One such organization is the Regional Food Distribution Association, which provides food hampers to food banks and First Nations across northwestern Ontario. Executive Director Volker Krom says that in some of the northernmost communities they serve, he has seen food prices triple and the cost of gas over $1 more than we might see in the city.
We have had to increase costs in packaging and food purchases, fuel pricing. Now we have refrigeration costs, the electricity costs, the gas prices have all impacted our operations. We've had to hire more staff because our inability to keep up with the demands not only in Thunder Bay but across the region.
Krom says the RFDA was already over budget last year, and he's expecting his expenses to increase by 25% over 22-23. Erin Beagle, Executive Director of Roots to Harvest, says the issue is much broader than just food. She says that mental health can suffer as well when income supports like OW and pension plans don't keep up with the rising cost of living.
Do they pay their phone bill, or do they get groceries this week? Or do their kids get to go on this, field trip, or, do they have lunch for food, or food for lunch, sorry. So they have to start weighing out the choices, and that becomes really stressful.
Beagle suggests that as individuals, the best way to help is to show compassion and pressure the federal and provincial governments to support programs like basic income. In the meantime, she predicts that organizations like Roots to Harvest, Dewdrop Inn, and Shelter House will be looking for support to continue filling the gap.
So you'll see all these agencies being like, actually, we're still doing fundraising, here we are again, because the cost of running our programs is going to go up too. And that's just how it works. If we want to give people fresh and good and nourishing food, we have to be able to pay for it.
Where we used to ask for food, primarily now we're saying, please, the money for transportation and storage is much more important.
Both the organizations that feed people and the income-stressed populations they serve are going to have to start making difficult choices between economic and more nutritious food options. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Coming up after the break, municipalities worry new professional standard requirements for firefighters could be detrimental for communities who use a volunteer firefighting model.
If they're going to spend their life training, then maybe they're not going to want to join the fire department.
New qualifications proposed for firefighters are being met with opposition from some of the leaders in communities served by volunteer firefighters. Their concerns are twofold: the cost associated with providing the training and the amount of training equals to that of a full-time job. Adam Riley has the details.
Almost all of the communities across the Northwest rely entirely upon volunteer firefighters to keep residents and the motoring public safe. But a proposal that will see an alignment with the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, professional standards doesn't sit well with some North Shore region leaders, with many noting it doesn't work for volunteer fire departments in smaller communities. Scarborough Mayor Kevin Mullins says while he agrees with the concept in principle, he is concerned those requirements could drive down recruitment.
If you're a small volunteer fire department, you already have a small group of people to draw from. And if the volunteers see that they're going to join the fire department, but they're going to spend their life training, then maybe they're not going to want to join the fire department because they already have to train if they're working somewhere else.
In Greenstone, the concerns over costs are fueling doubt over the sustainability of its fire department, which consists of 4 stations in 4 communities with at a minimum 15 firefighters stationed in each, a personnel equivalent of Orangeville, which has 6 times the population of Greenstone and the tax base to fund it.
We need to have some help in making that happen if that's the desire of the province. Small communities can't afford this.
Nipissing Mayor Richard Harvey notes another predicament these new requirements pose revolves around the personal lives of volunteer firefighters. He says the increased service requirements, such as entering burning buildings to fight fires, something Nipissing doesn't do, would mean increased time training, which can take up to several weeks of a volunteer's year.
When you have somebody who's volunteering, taking time away from his or her family to be there for the community, and then you're telling them that they have to take their holiday time from their full-time day job, they have to take that holiday time, and instead of spending time with their family, going on vacation, they have to then go to training so they can volunteer. That is just totally not sustainable for volunteer fire departments.
A letter from the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association to Ontario Solicitor General says while it supports the creation of the firefighter standards, the province should create standards specific to Ontario and that they be cognizant of the needs of volunteer fire departments, requesting that funding for certification requirements be made available for communities that will face financial burdens and that training deadlines be extended until 2026 for 100% volunteer fire departments. Adam Riley, TBT News.
A Kenora man is facing multiple charges following a theft in that city on March 13th. Police responded to the 2nd Street address and located the suspect, who became combative with officers. The 21-year-old has been charged with theft under $5,000, mischief under $5,000, assaulting a peace officer with a weapon, and failure to comply. The provincial government has fulfilled another of Horwath's wishes for health care in Northern Ontario. A significant number of medical student spaces at universities across the province have increased, including the Northern Ontario School of Medicine.
Talking about NOSM, the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, increasing the number of spaces there.
Adding 160 undergraduate positions and 295 postgraduate positions to Ontario's medical schools.
71 of the new med school and residency spaces announced by the provincial government will be at NOSM. 30 of those are undergraduate seats. The remaining 41 positions are for postgraduate students. Dr. Sarita Verma, the Institute's Dean President and CEO, is particularly excited about the increase in medical residencies in Northern Ontario and what it will mean for the shortage of doctors in the region.
So when they do their training and they stay here for those 2 years or 5 years, it's very likely they're going to lay down roots, but also because of the uniqueness and the award-winning curriculum that NOSM has, that we train people in community, right? They actually learn where they're going to practice. They like it and they stay. So we find that if you do your MD degree and you stay to your residency, almost 90% of our people stay.
The new med school spaces will be divided evenly between NOSM's Thunder Bay and Sudbury's campuses. And that wraps up tonight's Northwest Newsweek. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again.